Hey everybody, the Johnny Cage here, welcoming you to my brand new Let's Play. Today, we're playing Blaster Master for the NES, 1988 Sunsoft, and how can you not love the story to this game? Starts off with the boy, Jason, and his pet frog as it makes a big leap, an escape from captivity, if you will, headed towards that crate of radioactive material you've been keeping in your backyard for far too long, which causes him to grow to gigantic size, and jump into that sinkhole that you've been meaning to fill for years. Unknowingly of what's ahead of him, Jason jumps down the sinkhole, and only to discover a tank, a detailed pink tank, and a suit of armor that appropriately fits him just right. So, how can you not love that story? It's totally Nintendo, and let's get rockin', shall we? Because this game's got some fantastic music to it. In fact, this little scene in the beginning, it starts right as the music hits its peak. Just, really gets you going into the game. So this is Blaster Master. If you've never played it before, and I wouldn't blame you if you hadn't, it's from Sunsoft, not exactly a Capcom or Konami company, but they made some good stuff. I mean, they made Batman, they made Gremlins 2, Spy Hunter. They did some good video games for the NES. They just never reached that level of notoriety. And for 1988, this game's got awesome graphics and awesome sound to it. So you primarily use this tank, although you can get out using Select, and you can become Jason. If you want to, I highly doubt you would want to until the points where you really need to, and we're just looking to get Jason's pet frog back. That's all we're looking to do, but apparently in his backyard, if you dig down a few feet, there's a whole different world lurking about. Got these little shrine things, at least that's what I'm going to call them. There are a lot of those little brown things. They're not always brown, but they're scattered throughout the world, and you need to go into them and find the ones that you need to go into which have bosses in them. Beat the boss, you'll get an upgrade to your tank after you beat the boss, and then you move on your way to the next one. It's got that Metroid feel to it. There's a little bit of backtracking, but nothing too severe that it's really going to bog you down. It's pretty straightforward most of the time where you need to go. If you have trouble getting through one area, then you know that you need some sort of upgrade to get through that, and it's probably not far away from the area that you're in. Like Area 1, you get an upgrade, Area 2, you get an upgrade, so on and so forth. So you don't really have to leave that area until you get the upgrade, is what I'm saying. Now you come to these actual action platformer parts of it. Well, no, there's no platforming really involved. Where you play as Jason and his gun. I always find the way that he looks to be pretty strange. He looks like some sort of an action figure that doesn't really have movable parts, like he's meant for, like, little kids or something. I don't know. But he has two shots. He's got a regular blaster shot, hence Blaster Master, and he also has a grenade, which doesn't go as far, but causes kind of splash damage. I save the grenades for... Well, I don't need to save the grenades. There's infinite amounts of them, but they don't have as much distance, and they can be a little hard to play around with, so I generally stick to the gun. Here we got Terminator heads, which are going to drop our first power-up of the game, which is I try to make it through here without taking too much damage. When you're in the tank, they have 3 power-ups that you can have, and one of them are these missiles that we're getting right here, which will fire 3 missiles at once, but we'll get there when we get there. But first, let's take on the very first boss of the game, the gigantic Brain of Death. So for this, all I do is I just spam the grenade button. The hit detection in this game is a little strange. Like for this boss in particular, you really gotta hit him in the brain. If you hit him in the tendrils coming off of it, it's not gonna do any damage. But really not that hard of a boss anyway. This game is Blaster Master for a reason, because your fingers are gonna get a workout from hitting the attack button that much. So for that, we get the Hyper Beam of sorts. I didn't mean to call it the Hyper Beam, that's just kind of what it is. Increases the power of the shots that our tank is going to do. So that's, always a plus. A good, just basic item to get to start the game out. And then after this, we can move on to the next area with Jason swimming about. One cool thing is that Jason and Sophia, which is the name of his tank, they have their own health bars. So now when I get back into the tank, Jason's health is actually going to be at full. That doesn't work the other way around, obviously, but chances are you're going to get beat up a lot more as Jason than the tank. Also, there's only a couple of power-ups in this game. Oh, speaking of bad things, you don't want to fall in the water with the tank. That could be bad. But there's only a couple power-ups. The only one you've seen so far is just the straight-up power ability, so we'll only worry about that for right now. But you get a lot of them. They're not few and far between. And right there we take out the green gremlin of death. I don't know what he is really, but you need the Hyper Beam of sorts to take care of him. So that's your knowing that you can't get to Area 2 because, hey, there's something that's in your way. So that's how it is. Yeah, even if you get low on health in this game, I really don't worry about it, because it always seems like there's health right around the corner, and a lot of the enemies, as you can see here, don't take more than one shot to kill. So, and with the rate that things drop, it's really not too bad. Actually, one of your hardest enemies is going to be this damn caterpillar right here. He's throughout the entire course of the game, just because they're so annoying. They end up doing a little bit more damage later on. Right now, they don't do a whole lot to you, but man, are they just frustrating. And the shot from Sophia can't get low enough to take him out, so you can get out of your tank and blow him away if you want to with Jason. It's up to you, but you can do it. It's an option. Also, another thing worth mentioning is that even though Sophia the tank has a sprite that looks like it can fire at 45 degrees, it actually can't, which kind of sucks. I figured, why shouldn't it be able to? I mean, it's pretty, you know, it looks great having a sprite like that, and I don't see why the game couldn't, but oh well, you can't win them all, I suppose. Now we'll just go through this area. Ooh, here's an area where I can actually use Jason and have him go out here and bam, 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 bam. Yeah, take that. I love how his head is so much bigger than the rest of his body. It's just so ridiculous. I like how the tank also looks like it has a face to it, kind of like how people say that cars have faces to them. So, I don't know, just one of those little things you notice. Also, the hit detection for Sophia, I was mentioning it with the brain boss before, but the hit detection for Sophia is strange because it's really got to hit the body of it. Sometimes you'll have a turret like lodged in an enemy, and it won't do any damage. So that's something to consider. Hit detection in this game is a little wonky. Something that you're just going to have to play around with, and you'll figure it out on your own, but it's not enough. It's not game-breaking. Most of the time it works in your advantage, too, so you really can't complain too much about it. And, oh, geez, more caterpillar action. Oh, they are most fearsome, those caterpillars. Later on, we're going to get into some major challenges. If this looks really easy right now, that's because it is, but later on it's going to get much more difficult. We actually have the introduction of the lava here, and if there's one thing you don't want to fall in, it's the lava. It's not instant death as it would be in many a Nintendo game, but it's still really bad and will mess you up just so harshly. It also, it acts the same way that water does, so when you fall in it, you can't just jump out right away. You kind of have to wait till you sink to the bottom, and then you can jump out, so you actually probably end up taking more damage there than you should, but oh well. This is one of those ways where you actually need to start knowing where you're going. Like I mentioned, this game's pretty linear, but there's going to be points in it where you're going to have maybe 2, maybe even 3 different exits to choose from, and you're just going to have to kind of figure it out on your own, or you'll just reach a dead end probably shortly after going a wrong way and then come back and find another one. It's really not enough to bother you that much. I mean, Zelda and Metroid have bothered me a whole lot more with their, routes that have dead ends or, lead you to nothing but bad guys with no reward in them at all. I mean, like I mentioned, the bad guys here, they only take like 1 shot to kill, so not really a big deal. As we go through the second area down here, we get a nice little power-up, gives us full health, and we get the lightning bolt attack, which is really strange. Oh, crap, in the lava. Okay, well, that could have been a lot worse. The lightning bolt attack fires downwards out of you. So it's great when enemies are below you. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very much, so we're not going to be using a lot. In fact, we're not going to be using a lot of the power-ups in general. I'll show them off to show them off, but that's really the extent of it. So here's our second area, and here it's a little bit more difficult just because this place is more maze-like. A lot of these areas are actually fairly straightforward, surprisingly enough. They don't take more than, a few minutes to get through if you know what you're doing. And here I just picked up the gun. Now, as you can see to the left there, the gun power-up, pretty useful, but once you get it to a certain point, like after you get it past 2 gun power, it will start to turn into a gun that kind of homes in on enemies, but it gets really crappy. It just starts going all over the place, and it's hard to control. So I guess the gun's really good when you only have a couple points in it, and really good when it's full, and does fires 2 shots and they do a zigzag motion, but somewhere in the middle, it's actually really shit, so keep that in mind. We also got a hover drop. You might have seen that H, which is the other drop we'll be getting throughout the game. Allows Sophia to hover, but we're not going to be getting that power up until the 3rd boss. And speaking of bosses, here we go! Boss number 2. Now, one thing that's really interesting is that you're seeing me strafe here, and you might be wondering how I'm doing that considering it's on the NES. Well, Sunsoft totally took advantage of the controls here, and what you can do is hold down the grenade button, which is A, and then use the B button to fire your regular shot. This is kind of strange, because the way that it works best is to hold down A with your middle finger, and then use B, your index finger to tap B. So it's something that you kind of got to get used to. You can't tap as quickly as you would want to, but it's there, and it's not too hard to do. It just takes a little bit of practice, and that's not the only boss we're going to be using it against, so if you're playing along, you might want to get used to it. But for defeating that crazy scorpion guy, we get the Crusher power, which is going to allow us to break through walls that we couldn't otherwise. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Next time we're going to be going through the third area, as this game gets a little bit more challenging. Thanks a lot for watching. This has been Johnny Cage. Subscribe, like, comment if you have not. Talk to all of you awesome people later on.